On today's episode, we are looking at the finances of a 33-year-old lady. She has an 8-year-old daughter and she works as an internal auditor. Her husband recently passed away without a funeral cover and a life cover. So on top of covering hefty funeral expenses, she now has to figure out her finances without her husband. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Itumeleng. I'm a qualified management accountant, and on this channel, I help ordinary people like you learn how to start saving money, get out of debt, invest, and ultimately build wealth. If that is something you're interested in, please do subscribe and become a part of our growing rich family. Now let us see the finances of our sister. Before I get into her finances, I just want to send my deepest condolences to our sister and the rest of her family. Her monthly income, she has salary, 50,000 rands from being an internal auditor, and then she has rental income from an apartment that her husband bought and he paid it off before he died. So this apartment is paid off and she receives rental income of 4,500 rands. And the husband also had a truck that he used for his business, and the wife is renting it out for 11,000 rands. In total, her monthly income is 65,500 rands. So she spoke a lot about her husband not having life cover, and she said, you know, if only he had life cover, we wouldn't be in this situation. I wouldn't be worrying about finances. But in his defense, our brother left a paid off rental apartment and he also left a truck. So, you know, maybe that is his version of a life cover. And I said, actually, how did your husband get to not have life cover to begin with? She said, actually, interesting enough, I asked him about life cover just a few months before he died. He died in a car accident, so he wasn't sick or anything. She says, just before he died, a few months before he died, I asked him if he had life cover because I was going through my own policy. And you know what he said? He said, yes, ma'am. He said, I do have life cover. So I left it there only to find out after he passed that he didn't have any. Ma'am, you are an internal auditor. You have one job. Your job is to double check. You know, as an accountant, I do have a bone to pick with auditors. They make our lives very difficult. An auditor will come and turn your office upside down. They will question you on every single transaction. Ma'am, show me where you got this money. Show me who approved it. Show me the backup. Show me the law that allowed you to do that. Are you sure? Show me again. You do that to us only. But when it comes to men, you say, my husband, do you have life cover? He says, yes, ma'am. You say, yes, sir, I believe you. No backup. No double checking. Double standards. But like I said, our brother tried his best, and 65,000 is a lot of money. We can still make it work with 65,000. She did mention that the reason she's struggling, the reason she doesn't consider the 65,000 to be a lot is because her husband was someone that took care of a lot of their expenses. So, but now we will have to adjust. We have a new life and this money can really do a lot for us. Now let us look at her savings and investments as well as her debt balances. She has an emergency fund of 10,000 rands, stash 2,500 rands, Discovery 1,000 rands, Nedbank 7,800 rands. In total, her savings and investments are 21,300 rands. As you can see, she recently just started. Her husband passed away earlier this year, so she only started saving money after he died. Okay, ma'am, you earn a lot of money. You know, her income before the truck, before the rental income is a good income. 50,000 rands is a lot of money. You say your husband was taking care of a lot of your expenses. What were you doing with 50,000 rands? Because you were definitely not saving it. She said, you know what? The thing is, my husband was a good man and he took care of a lot of things, and I just took my money and I just did whatever I wanted. I bought clothes, I went out with friends, I went to dinners, and I just spoiled myself. I was just a princess and he did most of the stuff. Your husband did most of the stuff, and we can tell he was a good man. He was a provider, he was a responsible family man. And you were just a princess. She said, I was a princess. Please don't come for me. No, I'm already there. I already did come for you. Because 50,000 to be a princess. And as much as we say her husband was taking care of things, he definitely was not taking care of everything. He did not have life cover. That is where we were supposed to meet him halfway. Even if we don't take out life cover for him, we have money that we are saving in case of anything. We can continue. Not to start saving after he died, because if you had started saving, putting money in Discovery, Nedbank, emergency fund, while he was still alive, while he was still taking care of things, we would be far. And the gap of not having a life cover wouldn't be that big. I'm not going to shout too much because, she's still fragile. But please, if you're still a princess out there and your husband is taking care of everything, make sure he also has life cover. Make sure that your money that he says you can just spoil yourself, you also cover yourself, because you never know what will happen. Make sure that the kind of life that you're living, you understand first of all how much does it cost, and you understand that in case it's taken away from you, because besides death, there's so much that can happen. A lot of things can happen. So always make sure that you know how much it would take to maintain this princess life, and also not just for your sake, but also for the sake of your kids. Now let us look at her debt balances. House 890,000, car 216,000, phone 1,000 rands. She says, yeah, I know I am a pandemic. You're not a pandemic. You have a pandemic in your hands. She says, but as you can see, I'm about to pay it off, so I will be off the list of pandemics. Okay? Credit card 4,000 rands, pay flex 580 rand. In total, her debt balance is 1,111,580 rands. You see what a life cover is for. If our brother had left us a life cover, we could have used it to settle this. Then, life becomes a little bit easier. We don't have a house debt. We don't have a car debt. We just, learn to survive and move forward. Now, on top of normal day-to-day expenses, we now have to also make sure that we settle this debt. And for people that were princesses, people that were living the high life, the soft life, that can be tough to balance. As much as we say 65,000 rands is a lot of money, for them it might not be that much because they are used to a certain lifestyle that, to be fair, the husband was able to provide, but he did not get a life cover so that in case he passes away, which, he did, that they can be able to just continue to live the same lifestyle. Now let us look at their monthly expenses to see what kind of a life are they living that 65,000 rands cannot contain. Her bond is 9,400 rands. Levies 6,750 rands. She says this is for their primary home as well as for the rental apartment. Rates and taxes 1,300 rands. Maintenance and repairs for the rental unit 1,000 rands. So if you do a quick math here, you will see that the rental units, as much as we said that the husband left it as some sort of a life cover supplement, the rental units are not profitable. If you do the calculations, if she really sits down and runs the numbers, despite it being paid off, it is bleeding money. So I told her she must keep an eye on it and continue to monitor it so that she can see the actual financial impact of this rental income. And if it continues to make a loss, she might have to consider selling it and use some proceeds from the sale to settle some of her debt. That would make a big difference. And if a rental unit is something that, she's attached to, she wants to have in the future, you can always go back and buy another one. But for now, I don't think it's worth keeping, but we must give it a few more months so that she can really see what is happening, because her husband was in charge of the rental unit and he recently passed. She's still trying to piece a lot of things together, so she might not necessarily have the most accurate information as yet. Her car is 9,850 rands. That's a bit of a pricey car. She said yes. It's a princess car. It's my SUV. Love it. Okay, I see you, princess, but it's pricey. We will come back to the car. Transport for her daughter is 2,000 rands. That's a high transport as well, but she says the school is a bit far from home. Groceries, 4,500 rands. Toiletries, 1,500 rands. She does not buy toiletries every single month. She buys maybe once every 2 months, once every quarter. So be mindful of the toiletries money. On the months where you are not paying for toiletries, make sure that you put the 1,500 rands towards something useful. Funeral cover and insurance, 3,800 rands. This is for home contents insurance, the iPhone insurance, as well as her car insurance. Medical aid for her mother, 1,000 rands. School fees, 9,040 rands. The school fees is up there with the dream car, SUV princess car. School fees for one beginning baby, 9,040 rands. I said, this is a bit high. Don't you think the school fees is pricey? She said, yes, the school fees is a bit pricey, but my husband was settling the school fees at the beginning of every year and also getting a discount. Well, the husband did not leave any money for education, any money for school fees for this year to begin with. So 9,000 rands. We might have to consider downgrading the school fees as well as the SUV. The SUV we can downgrade immediately. You sell it, you settle the balance, and whatever you are left with, you buy a small car, your life carries on. Immediately the 9,850 rands is freely available and you still have a car to be able to move around. The school fees is going to be a bit tricky. You cannot uproot your child in the middle of the school year, but we can try for next year. Even if you don't reduce school fees by a lot, any amount that we can reduce school fees by will really go a long way, because this child, first of all, does not have an education fund, does not have a TFSA. We are paying all this money currently towards school fees, but we have nothing else to be able to contribute towards their future. That is where the danger is. And that's exactly what the husband was doing. The husband was able to provide this nice life currently, just for the current moment, but did not have a plan. Well, he had some plans. He had trucks and apartments, but not a concrete plan of what is going to happen moving forward. So this school fees can be able to contribute something towards an education fund, pay for school fees in a nice school. Don't get me wrong. It can still be a nice school that is a little below this. This will be next year. And then we put something towards the kids' education fund and start investing in their TFSA. Even if we don't max it out, any form of contribution will set them up for the future. Helper, 3,500 rands. The helper is slightly underpaid. I'm just going to assume she was being paid better when the husband was still treating everyone like a princess. Maybe it's temporary. As soon as we recover, we will pay the helper a little bit better. Entertainment, 2,000 rands. Hair, 500 rands. Phone, 1,300 rands. This phone, this will be the last payment and it will be 1,000 rands, and then this 1,300 rands will be able to go towards other things. You see what difference it makes not having a pandemic on your expenses. You can have 1,300 rands all to yourself. Netflix, 300 rands. She says the reason her Netflix is high is because she added her mother, her brothers, her uncles, and everyone. Wi-Fi, 1,000 rands. She also explained the Wi-Fi. She says it includes her mom's and her uncle's Wi-Fi as well. Payflex, 580 rands. credit card 600 rands. The PayFlex is also a settlement amount, so going forward this 580 rands can go towards other things. So the iPhone money of 1,300 rands as well as the PayFlex of 580 rands. Going forward, we are going to put that towards the credit card so that we can pay it off faster. As soon as we've paid off the credit card, the 600 rands is also going to be freely available to us. So going forward, after the iPhone is paid off, the PayFlex is paid off, and the credit card is also paid off, we will have 2,100 rands to be able to put towards savings. As you saw in the beginning, you know, our savings are critical but stable. They need all the help that they can get. And then therapist is 1,300 rands. As you can imagine, our sister is still traumatized from her husband passing away from a car accident. She's in therapy and she says it's been helpful. Other subscriptions, 300 rands. Stash, 500 rands. Stokvel, 2,000 rands. You know what? Stokvel is starting to become a pandemic. I love a stokvel, don't get me wrong. I already mentioned that I love stokvels, but they are beginning to become a pandemic because, you know, remember what our last sister was saying, free money, free money. Even with our sister here, she was saying, no, but I can try to remember, but no, now I have a plan for when it comes now. Because remember back then when my husband was still alive, I told you I was a princess. I didn't really need, you know, to be that wise with money. I just used my money as I saw fit. But now I'm really going to use the stokvel payout to put towards school fees, to really push where I can. Okay, if she says so. And to be fair, like she said, she initially did not have, you know, this agency, this big expectations from her to get it together, to be wise with her money, because her husband was taking care of everything. But now, as you can see, she has even started saving because she realized that she's on her own, and unfortunately she has to get it together. So let's give her the benefit of the doubt with the stokvel that she's going to use it towards school fees. When it comes, it's going to reduce that big 9,000 rands. Nedbank 900 rands. Emergency fund 2,000 rands. Discovery 1,000 rands. In total, her monthly expenses are 67,920 rands. That is more than her income of 65,000 rands. So currently she's operating at a shortfall of about 2,400 rands. Even with 65,500 rands, someone can still be at a shortfall because, you know, different lives. This is a high life that we have here. This is a princess. And I said to her, your expenses are not bad, ma'am. They are really not bad. However, what I see is you're still continuing to just operate and move, financially speaking, as if your husband was still here. You need to adjust your finances to now match your income and also match your saving goals. She says she wants to make sure that she has a fully funded emergency fund, she has investments, because if her husband's death taught her anything, is that emergencies can happen and they can happen at any time. So she made an example and she said if something happened to her child, like her child fell sick or had an accident or something like that, and she had to rush her child to the hospital, she wants to always just sit with that confidence, you know, with that peace of knowing that if anything happens, she has enough money to be able to move and act. Because when her husband got into an accident, she realized a lot of things about money, that having money readily available can make such a huge difference in those instances. So if having a lot of money readily available in the emergency fund and having investments that are growing is important to you, we will have to structure your finances to communicate the same message. There's not a whole lot that she can cut. That is just how her life was set up. But between the stash, the stokvel, Nedbank and Discovery, that's already 6,400 rands that currently she was trying to put towards savings. But that's not actually an honest representation, because on top of saying that she wants to save, or she's been saving 6,400 rands, we also have a shortfall of 2,400 rands. So that means she's only able to save 4,000 rands every single month. And that will not fly. That is not going to cut it for a single mother that wants to do the best for her child, but also for her income. Your income is 65,500 rands. You cannot just save 4,000 rands. So currently what I see, in order to balance her expenses to her income, make sure that her expenses are within the limits of her income. You cannot be spending 68,000 rands and you only make 65,000 rands. First of all, the only thing that I see here that we can be able to downgrade immediately and immediately be in a position where we can be able to save and invest more is unfortunately the Princess SUV. If she downgrades the car, she'll be able to have a little bit more to go towards savings and investments. Imagine if this whole 9,800 rands is what she's able to save and invest. That is a whole lot better than where we started. And I know she says it's a big SUV, but she can downgrade to a smaller car. And I said, you know what, ma'am, your husband left a truck. You already have an SUV. You already have a big car. So you can downgrade into a smaller car and also keep looking at that rental apartment. If it's really just bleeding money, it might be better to just sell it and use that money to move you and your daughter's life forward. But other than that, our sister is really not that bad. She's just going through grief and all the emotions that she's really panicking, especially because, she's used to having a husband that took care of a lot of things. So she really thought she was much worse than she actually is, because first of all, she has started saving, just not enough. She needs to make sure that she downgrades a little bit more so that she can be able to flourish from there. I understand it's not easy losing a provider, losing someone that took care of your finances, but our sister has a lot of money on her own, and she just needs to realize that, sure, your husband was taking care of things, but you're also in a very good position to continue to provide a good life for you and your kids. Honestly, it could have been much worse. Imagine if she didn't have any income at all and her husband did not have any life cover. That would have been chaotic. And our sister has been approaching this situation as if she didn't have her income, because her money has just been used for princess activities. So she didn't actually realize that her money can buy and her money can invest and it can save. But that is what we are going to be doing going forward, and I'm very confident that she's going to be able to bounce back, and she's doing pretty good already. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you found value in this episode. If you did, please leave me a like, subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, I hope you have a rich day.